Hello YouTubers. This is the 15th video where we continue our discussion and conversation, our tutorials on building end-to-end Blazor applications, professional enterprise level, test-driven, behavior-driven Blazor applications, factoring in our engineering standard, our guidelines, and making sure that everything that we're doing, we take the time to actually explain, the mindset and the patterns and the principles that are actually guiding our development. So we're not just writing code in that makes things work. We're trying to build something that actually is meaningful and something that's maintainable and extensible. So for engineers to come in and actually be able to follow the same standard or even improve that standard and drive it to a certain point of perfection. Okay, so the last time we were here, we basically built the navigation piece. We basically went in and let me share my screen with you here. So we basically went in and added in the navigation piece. Just to remind everyone, this is a simple open source student registration application. It's called OSSS, Open Source Schooling System. And we basically were building the UI that supports the backend, the API, to actually allow us to register a student. So let's just go ahead first and make sure that our stuff is still working. It's been a while, so I'm just going to say ABC 1 2 3 4 5, and then I'm going to add in a name, and here's a last name, and then I'm going to select a gender, and then I'm going to go up in here and say this is that, and then submit a student, and successfully pushes it to the API. All good and dandy, no problem. The integration is working fine. But having things work alone is not enough. Things have to work and they have to be beautiful. They have to be captivating. This is how you're actually competing in the software market. It's not enough that you build some form that is all over the place with 50,000 buttons and expect that people will actually use your software over using something else. The revolution in something like mobile phones, remember when mobile phones used to have like 50 buttons on it, and then they started to have only 3 buttons, and then the 3 buttons turned into 1, and now we don't have buttons at all. It's just a screen with all the modularization of buttons that you can place around the screen. It's all software based. The hardware is just powering up that screen and being able to take in these through the sensors to take in commands. There are 3 important stages that software development goes through, and I need you to listen to me very well on this one because this is really it changes how you may perceive the software development life cycle. Maybe in school you were taught that you go from design to development to deployment to testing and all that kind of stuff and back and forth. But this design and development piece, there's a lot of stuff that's going on there that I want you to actually pay attention to. When you write software, it's one of 2 things. Either you're writing a pattern and following the same tooling that you have used in a previous software, so you may skip step 1 or step 0 rather, or you're starting from scratch and you're just trying to see how things are going to work. There are 3 stages that one has to go through when they are actually building software. First of all, if you don't know what you're doing at all, then you have to go through a stage or a period of experimentation, right? This is what we call make things work, right? This is a POC stage, and this POC stage is just you going and saying, does this actually work? If I follow these exacts, okay, without going and spending all the time in the design and development, I need to have some proof of concept, to know whether what I'm building actually is functional or not. So this is really important stage. Once you're done with this prototyping, you destroy everything and you just make it right. Make it right meaning this is productionization. Sorry, this is standardization. Standardization is when you go and say, okay, I built a really, cutting corner, quick thing that shows that I can use this UI component to post data. Now I need to test drive this. So I need to destroy the entire prototype. I need to start from scratch. And when I start from scratch, I'm going to have to test drive and actually build components on every single part of this. So making it work is great. Making it right is greater, right? So I'll go here, if this was a street signal, then making it work meaning it's not really ready for productionization. But in here, it's getting a little bit closer, but there is a third aspect in here that's really important when you're building software. It doesn't matter whether you're exposing your software as an API or a mobile application or a UI or a micro UI, it doesn't matter. You know, it has to be perfect, and you have to kind of dedicate the level of quality and passion and love to what you do into that third aspect, making it pretty. And this here is really important. This here is based on people, the people that will be using your system. What that basically means is that if I go here, this what makes something actually ready to be used in production. We have went together through all of these stages. We went from, you know, just testing things real quick to building the brokers and then the services and then the view services. And we built something that works, so we made it work, which is really what this page is all about. This little page here. This is what this page is all about, making something work, but it's not pretty. And if it's not pretty, it's as good as bad as if it's not working at all. Because nobody's going to come here and look at this page in here and say, yeah, this looks like a legitimate website. I am totally going and going to use this. This looks like a scam website. Someone's trying to steal your information. It has no legitimacy. It has no validation. And it seems a little creepy to take a look and work with something like that. Think about it this way. Let's say you have the best printer. You create the best printer in the world. But this printer has so much work internally that's real. The inner workings of this printer is a state of the art. However, the interface of this printer is really poor. It has 50,000 buttons. It's making people not willing. It doesn't entice people to actually use the system. So you have to dedicate that kind of power and energy towards your the product that you're trying to build. Because if you don't do that, you won't be able to actually extract the highest value, you know, from actually exposing your genius, exposing that great product to the outside world. Well, what that basically means is that we need to actually work really hard on making this UI actually something functional. Make it something that it's functional. We want to make it pretty, right? This is when we go and say, you'll hear people saying with the form and the function come together, right? The form and the function. The third aspect of this is the spirit that's gluing up the form and the function and actually building something that is meaningful. Okay, let's jump into the next step, and bear with me on this one because this is really important. There is something called a web framework. Web framework. A web framework is basically a framework that's built to allow you to build software that runs in the browser. What's an example of web framework? You'll see things like React, JS, Angular, JS, and Blazor, and so many others. There's so many other web frameworks, you know, that allow you, or UI frameworks that basically help you kind of, you know, use your preferred programming language with certain formulation and for certain standardization that allows you to build components for the web. But these frameworks are not enough, are not good enough. Because these frameworks are not going to tell you how to build pretty applications. They'll tell you how to build web applications, but it's not going to tell you how to build pretty applications, which is really, really important. This is the topic of this session here. In order for you to build pretty applications, you need what we call UI components that go on top of that. UI components that goes on top of that. What's an example of UI components? I don't know. You know, if you're using, it's based on the framework, right? But usually these UI components have something called theme, like an aspect, and they have a theme that works with a particular web framework, and that's what I call UI component. How does that work? A theme is something like this. Let me break this apart for you a little bit further. So this web components is two different pieces, right? One that interfaces with the web framework, and one that interfaces with the front-end UI components, which is your front end, or what I call your code. I'm going to put it up here. That's where your code comes into place, right? So this is CSS. That's basically what this is. That's what makes a UI component. So there's the framework API. Okay, that's the interface, or let's call it integration. Integration in here. This is the piece that actually knows how to talk to this guy. Okay, Okay, that's great. But then there's also the theme or the style that goes on top of this, which is HTML plus CSS that makes it a style or a theme. What's an example of this? There are so many of those out there. Like, let me extend this a little bit so I can give you an example. So here's this guy, here's this guy. So style like this would be like material design. There is fabric, there is bootstrap, there is so many etc etc. There's so many different styles out there that basically allow you, so that's how this guy interfaces like this. Actually, let me put these like these. Yeah, both of these is what represent this. This guy communicates like this, and this guy communicates with it. Yeah, this guy will talk to the interface and basically glue to these outside so it can talk to the browser, right? It knows how to render things on the browser. So I'm going to put this in green like this. So that's what these UI components are. It doesn't matter what framework you're using. The framework is okay, but the framework is not going to make you a good software or UI designer that can actually use something outside of the box that can build something meaningful, right? Let's take a look at these things. Let's take a look at some of the themes that are out there in the world. So let's say popular UI themes, Bootstrap and material design and so on and so forth. Let's go in there. Not this one. There it is. There's Bootstrap. There's all these different designs. Actually, this is just, hold on. Let's see if I can find popular UI styles. Let's go down in here. Here's our trends. Not this one as well. Okay, UI frameworks. So there's these frameworks. Okay, this frameworks out there, and then there is the themes, UI themes. Let's see. Let's see here. There's all these different ones that are actually, the UI designs, themes. You'll see a lot of those everywhere, like UI kits, Bootstrap, Kit, stuff like that. Anyway, there's so many of these out there. I will show you a list of those very, very soon, when it comes to this piece. Anyway, let's go back in here. So there's this material design, fabric, bootstrap, and each one of those comes in. They're not out there in the wild, although that with fabric specifically, you might find it out there in the wild, but normally they get shipped as a UI component. So that means, you can find out there in the wild something that is UI components, like material design, UI components for React. Right? You can find something like this as a product. You can also find something like this in the wild, something like Bootstrap UI components for Blazor. Right? Or maybe something even like this. I can go out in here and find something like Fabric UI components for React, for instance, something like that. Is that really true? Yeah, you'll find these being shipped together. So if I go here and say material UI components for React like this, look, you'll find all these competing products out there that will basically go and sell you components that you can use. Like if I go into the components section, there you go. You can find all the components in here, and every component has the grid. How do you do a grid in React? Look, all of these different components that you want to have that basically help you build quick UI, pretty looking UI applications with these particular themes. The same thing happens in here. If I want to say material UI components for Blazor, because Blazor is a framework, there you go. You're going to find all these competing projects, and then you're going to find something like Mud Blazor, right? Here's they say I'm gonna help you build UI components. It's based on material design. If you go out on the left side in here, you'll see all the components. Let's go into, I don't know, a grid, for instance. Here you go. Here's your grid. Here's how the spacing works and all that. There's data grid as well, where you go and say dialogues. Look, it'll show you some simple dialogues and all that. So it's all designed for you. So you can go out in there and actually basically be able to, and you can switch from WASM to server side and back and forth. It's all working fine. So this is the state of things. This is how the world works today, right? You have particular styles, and there's integration with a particular web framework, and both of these come up with a product, right? So you're going to find a product that's called React with Material Design or React with Fabric and all that kind of different stuff, okay? Now, there are so many competing products. Like out of this, like for instance, when I go and search for Material Design UI components for React, you're going to find many, like let me put one of these in here. You're going to find many competitions where people go and say, I have something that does exactly the same thing. Many of these. This is what I call products. So this is a product, and these can have all kinds of different names. Mud Blazor, Blazorize, all kinds of different, components out there. And this is where the competition is, and this is where everything is happening because, building UI components is a product in and of itself. Like some people will pay money to actually use that, or there's open source products out there that you can use to kind of, get to that point. If I go, it depends really on what products you're trying to use. But if I go here and say Blazor UI components like this, and be careful of the language here, not Blazor framework, Blazor UI components, you'll find all these competing. Look, 10 nice free Blazor UI components. There's Radzin, there is Blazorize, there's Design Blazor, Map Blazor, Blazor Strap, Panoramic Data, Blazor, Element Blazor, all of these different, components that people are going out there. Some of them are open source, some of them are not. That basically, and the contribution, and like when Blazor first came out, I predicted that there's going to be a big explosion when it comes to that. Not like the days where we had, excuse me, MVC. Not like the days even before that when we had so many different kind of competing products that are trying to get there. With this explosion in the web development and single page applications and all that, a lot of people started to jump into that bandwagon, and as I expected, I predicted, has come to pass in terms of how much adaptation is going on. This is time that people are doing in. Look at this Blazor straps, UI components, for Blazor framework that can actually show you the bootstrap stuff for it. All of this is happening out there, and some of them may follow kind of traditional concepts, and some of them come up with their own, right? Like if you go to this guy, for instance, Blazor, they have their own kind of thing, where they say, okay, we're gonna make the buttons look in a specific way, and that might be enticing and actually more interesting to people who don't want to just fall into a particular standard design like Material Design or Office Fabric or Bootstrap or any of that stuff. Okay. Okay, so you understand the framework, right? This has been 20 minutes worth of you understanding how the world works when it comes to selecting what UI component you need to work with and all that kind of stuff. They get shipped together. Some people, like you'll see the fabric team at Microsoft, they will go and release the style CSS, and they'll say you go ahead and link it to whatever framework you want to link it to, right? It's a lot of work because you have to build these components. Of course, it's a lot of work. That's why people go sell it, because it saves you a lot of time and effort. Now, how do you select? How do you make the decision, really? There's all these different styles. So styles multiplied by products. So style multiplied by frameworks. Okay, if we already determined that we want to pick up Blazor as a web framework, okay, that eliminates React and Angular and all of these different, other frameworks are out there, Ember and Vue.js and all that. Okay, so we selected Blazor in here as a framework. Okay, so the foundation is Blazor. Okay, that eliminates part of the problem that we're trying to solve, right? Now, the second problem that I'm trying to solve is that what style I want to pick. I personally prefer Office Fabric because it's clean, it's nice, but it's up to your kind of taste to determine what what style you want to work with and what makes more sense to your end users, right? So I'm gonna go with Office Fabric. So that takes care of the design. Office Fabric, that takes care of that particular element, which is the styling. Now, what framework do I need to use in the middle here that will help me work with Blazor and have Office Fabric outside of the box? Now, I'm gonna speak to you from experience, the things that worked for me, right? In the past 24 months, I was able to build an end-to-end enterprise application, very heavy enterprise application. And I've done a little bit of research, actually a lot of research back then, and that was 2 years ago at the beginning when Blazor was still very young and everyone was still researching. And what worked for me is a library called Syncfusion with Blazor. Syncfusion with Blazor. Syncfusion is not an open source platform. It's not a library that you can pull the source code and actually change it and all that kind of stuff. It's not. But they also offer the community license for those who want to build software for nonprofit organizations. So it worked for me because I was building an enterprise application. I don't want to waste time on accessibility or waste time on things that break. I want something that works, plug and play, something that just excuse me, works off the bat without any issues at all. So Syncfusion was my decision here. Syncfusion was my decision here to actually solve that dilemma. And that's a question anybody who's building software is going to have to ask themselves, right? The framework is very tied to the technology, to what language you're working with. The Office Fabric or the style is very tied to, how you want your application to look like. And then the decision here is basically based on your budget. Do you have a budget? Is it proprietary? Is it commercial? Are you going to pay money or are you going to go with open source? But with open source, it's going to be a little bit of, tricky when it comes to support and accessibility. It all depends on what kind of problems you're trying to solve and what kind of engineering team you have. You could have an engineering team that says, I'm going to go build my own framework. Great. All power to you. A lot of people do that sometimes, especially with big companies. I think Bootstrap was born from Twitter. The Twitter as a product, they went and said, we're going to build our own framework, and we're going to call it Bootstrap. And they did, right? I know that a lot of material design came out of Google, right? Office Fabric is a Microsoft thing. So every big company out there, if you have the budget and you have the enterprise weight to actually pull something like that off, all power to you. Otherwise, if you're building something simple like this and you're trying to actually get off the ground and then later on decide what you want to do, then these frameworks are going to help you a lot with that kind of style. Okay, so we're going with Syncfusion in here. And let me tell you a little bit about Syncfusion so you understand. So you can get it for free if you're building nonprofit project. If you're building a serious project and you have a budget for it, this is what worked for me, but definitely in this series we might try with a lot of things. Let's go to Syncfusion real quick and tell you what's really interesting about Syncfusion. This, by the way, in no shape or form is a paid commercial thing for Syncfusion. They pay me nothing for that. This is just what worked for me, and I hope it works for you too. Here's the power of Syncfusion. You can actually select any style. This is something that was really, really attractive to me. They can select it literally any style they want, and you can go with it. You want to switch to Bootstrap, you want to go to Fabric, sure, go to Fabric. You want to go with, see, this is Office Fabric. Actually, no, not yet. Let me refresh this real quick. Not yet. Let me show you how that's really, because Fabric doesn't have that stuff. This is mostly, let's see here, Fabric. Yeah, there you go. Look at this. As soon as you flip to Fabric, immediately, look how things changed in here. The menus have changed. It looks a lot like SharePoint. If you're using SharePoint or Dynamics or any of these Microsoft products, you will find this very, very pertinent. You'll find this style here very, very pertinent. I'm going to use Fabric because it's clean and I like it personally. It's pretty cool actually, and I'm going to show you how you're going to pull Office Fabric into or the Syncfusion components into our existing form in here. I already took a picture for you here for that form just so we can determine before and after. So this is the before piece. This is how our form looked like. Excuse me. This is how our form looks like before we did the modernization of the UI. Now let's see where we're gonna drive this shape into once we are done with, let me zoom in a little bit. This is how it looks like today. Let's see what happens when we add in Syncfusion. Okay, let's go back to the portal and let's start this step by step. Now, bear with me because this is really, really important. Every step here really matters. And believe it or not, this is the third video that I make because I keep running into issues and I have to adjust and then restart the recording again because I want it all to be one single flow. I don't edit my videos like a lot of you know. I don't change any of that stuff. It's like you and I sitting here drinking tea together and actually me showing you something really cool that hopefully will be beneficial for you, you know, with your job or with whatever products you want to build for yourself and help yourself and your community. Okay. First and foremost, let's just make sure everything is up to date. I'm going to go up in here because I haven't touched this project in a while, and I apologize for the delay because of the holidays and other things, you know, life in general. I'm just going to go ahead and upgrade everything in my projects, get up to date. We already, you know, took that project to .NET 6, so we should be in good state, and we're using Visual Studio 22. So that means we're on the bleeding edge of things. That's really good. And I really want you to make that a practice, make that a habit to keep things up to date. It's really interesting. You get to learn new things and your application continuity, you know, continues. So let's just install all of these things real quick in here. Here we go. All right. And because I've done this already 3 times, you know, you're going to have an error when you try to build your project because Fluent assertions, hear me very well, Fluent assertions with their version 6, they changed a few things when it comes to validating types. So here we are. So they don't do B of type out of the bat with the value like this anymore. So you have to go and say get type. They said this is a weird design and we don't want to do it anymore. And I was like, okay. And then I said, I think B of type this, and I think that was it. I think there was a little trick in there. Let's just see. You know, I think B or something. Anyway, let's just run the test real quick and see that this is the case. So yeah, I've done it 3 times, still forgetting it. You know, this is a word for you, Fluent assertions. You know, the new API is not simple. It's not simple and easy to remember. Is it still failing? Yeah, it's still failing. So there is I think, let's see here. B of type, yeah, I think it's B or something. Should be. Is it should be like that? Let's see. Yeah, that works. There you go. So get type and it should be, and then it should give me all the kind of powers. So that's it for now, but I need to follow up with these folks because that's actually frustrating. Okay, so this is it. Okay, so we upgraded all the libraries. All good and dandy, love it, right? So I'm gonna go up in here and just commit this and say config update libraries and fix this. Okay, they made a decision. Good luck to them. Okay. Now let's get to the interesting stuff. I need to install Syncfusion in here. I'm gonna install 2 things. I'm gonna install the Syncfusion library on my web portal projects. This is Syncfusion. Syncfusion.blazor. Here's one. Install. And then I want also the themes because I want to pull in Office Fabric themes. So let's do this as well. Here we go. Takes a second there. Syncfusion, you know, have a great team that can actually support you if you're using their paid version. They'll be able to work with you and give you all the kind of details you need, you know, to kind of get any trouble you run into. This is what comes out of the paid versions. You know, they have their support team. They're out there. They're willing to help you whenever you need help. Okay, so there's all that. And then I'm going to install the themes. And then if you go up in here, you'll see that they have a really nice documentation with getting started that'll tell you up in here, a second here, a very nice documentation that walks you through all these little steps, right? So once you install these libraries, it literally, you know, with screenshots, with everything, it tells you what to install. And once you install this, they say go ahead and add the theme that you care about, right? In here it's Bootstrap, but obviously since we want Fabric, we're going to go with Fabric. Where do you go for Fabric? Let me hide my camera here real quick. and let's go into the host CS HTML. This is where things at, and then we're gonna do Control KD. So that fixes in this styling for me. And then I'm gonna change this into Fabric, just like this. Okay, so I installed Syncfusion. I installed the libraries, 2 libraries. I installed the Syncfusion themes and Syncfusion Blazor. What's the next step in here? If you look at their documentation, they'll tell you go ahead and add Syncfusion Blazor in your services. I'm going to copy that guy in here. I'm just going to throw it right into my startup CS. Here we go. Services dot add Syncfusion Blazor. Here we go. And then of course I need my references. So if you do Control period on your keyboard, that'll give you the results that you need when it comes to adding Syncfusion Blazor to your system. Okay, let's run everything. Let's just make sure every single step of the way, just, you know, it's like when you're playing video games. You kind of want to save, you know, just to make sure that you're not breaking anything. So here we go. I mainly focus at this bottom side because that's where the UI stuff is. It's not going to hurt my services, my foundation services or view services. So you should be in good shape there. So this is all good. But not for long, because Syncfusion, when we run with BUnit, it kind of tries to render a phantom version of your software. And since we add Syncfusion Blazor here, we're going to need to add some stuff also in our test. But we'll come back to that one in a bit. Okay, so far so good. I installed all of that. This is all good and dandy. Let's start with the buttons. I want to change my button here from this really crappy, you know, kind of, you know, weird looking native button that comes out of the web page, and it really depends on the browser. So every browser tries to render that the way they want, right? So you are subject to change there. I want to add a really fancy button, something that people would actually want to use. So I'm going to go ahead and say using syncfusion.blazor.buttons. So that's their namespace. Okay, of course the autocomplete will help you with that. You'll see here if I say .blazor. Look, it'll show you all the kind of things, cards and data and grids and heaps and lists and all kinds of crazy stuff that you can use, because these are the components. That's what you're actually signing in for, right? And then I'm gonna go in here and say SF button, which is Syncfusion button, and then I'm gonna add some of that stuff. So I want to do and say on click. It's a little bit of a change, and on click here, notice that I'm only changing my base components, but I'm not going to touch my components. Just the same way, if you flip from entity framework to using something else like an ORM, you shouldn't be touching your foundation services. If our components is the equivalent of a foundation service, then our base components are the equivalent of a broker's. It's abstracting away the frameworks and the technology that you're working with. This is intentional design, okay? In other words, if I go back in here from the previous video, let's see here, not this guy, here, you'll notice that whatever UI component you're communicating with, your components and pages are none the wiser. They don't know anything about that guy. The only people that know about that guy is base component. That's intentional to abstract away, you know, the work that you're doing without having to touch your UI components and without having to go and change. Like, you're using these base components everywhere. A button is a button is a button, even if you have 50,000 forms. It doesn't make sense to go to 50,000 forms and change that. Just change your base component and everything should be good and dandy. So okay, so this is my SF button right here, and then I'm gonna go ahead and add in, I think they have disabled, and I'm gonna add disabled in here. This is funny because the other components have enabled instead of disabled, but that's okay. And I also need the label, so I'm just gonna do /SF button in here. I'm gonna pass in the label in the middle here. So this is label. Now please, if you wanna follow like a certain standard when it comes to adding in properties, if you have more than one property, my standard is to take a new line, just like I did in here. On click disabled, it makes it so much easier and prettier, the code itself, to read, right? And you'll see how complicated it's gonna get in a second with the drop downs and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so this is the button. I updated my buttons. I'm gonna add one tiny thing to that button, which is something called isPrimary, just to show you how beautiful this thing is. isPrimary equal true is basically gonna turn the button from gray to blue, right? And blue is that beautiful blue color that is very pertinent when it comes to Office Fabric UI work. Okay, so this is primary. Now let's go ahead and run our test again. Now I'm expecting this test to fail because they're going to try to run a component that now relies on Syncfusion, but there's no Syncfusion initiation in your Phantom instances. So a lot of these tests are going to fail. The only one that passes is the one that ensures everything is null without rendering at all. The one that doesn't call rendering, basically. Now, if you look at the problem here, it'll tell you, the problem here is that you're calling something called Syncfusion button. This Syncfusion service has not been registered yet. It has not been registered yet. How do we register it? It's very simple. In the constructor of your UI, go ahead and say this.services.add Syncfusion Blazor, like this. Syncfusion Blazor, if I go and run this again, it will say I need another dependency called options, right? Something that Syncfusion is relying on that you still need to add to your services. And options will require you to add the JS interop because Syncfusion underneath is doing some magic with JavaScript. That's what makes their components interesting. There's a lot of mind power going into this that makes it look the way it looks. So this .services.add options. Okay, and then the last thing, if I run this again, it's going to fail because it wants that JavaScript interop configuration. How do you want to interop with JavaScript since you're using some underlying components in there? So this guy in here says, hey, here's the thing, JS interop is not configured. Since we really, just want to configure it, I'm just going to say JS interop mode, and then I'm going to say loose. That's it. So now my test should pass because I basically built in the entire structure that a normal Blazor application is building when you're running your software. Let's go ahead and run all of this. Ideally, if I were Syncfusion, I would basically add in all the options and all that kind of stuff as part of the add Syncfusion, and I don't have to bother engineers with doing any of that stuff. So now everything is passing. What that basically means, it means that if I run my application, you should always start like this. Make a change, run your test, make sure they pass, and then run it end to end just to make sure everything is functional. Now, look at this. It's going to render that with a little message. And this message here is asking for a license. Like I said, if you're building an open source project for a community or whatever, they give you a free license with all the options. It's called community license. Really highly recommend you go and take a look at that. Let's close that guy. Now look at this button. This button is very, very different now. We have a much fancier button than this garbage that we had originally, right? This native, button that we had. Now we have a fancier button that we can work here, which is submit student. See the difference here? See how things changed in here? Let's move on and modernize the rest of our UI. I'm going to show you at the end of this video, everything is going to change so dramatically. You wouldn't even recognize, your UI components. Our UI here is going to change. Everything's going to change, really. Everything here is going to change dramatically. And I'll show you how that works in a second. Okay, what's the next thing in line in here? The DateTime picker base. Let's change this one real quick. So now you get the drill, right? Now you understand how things are working. So I'm going to go ahead in here and say using Syncfusion Blazor, and then this is DateTime, calendars. Come on. Calendars. There you go. And then I'm going to go up in here and say SF DateTime picker. There's my guy. SF DateTime picker. And then what do I want? I want something here called t-value, which tells me what the value that this DateTime picker is supposed to work with. We always work with DateTime offsets. It's DateTime done right. So that's in there. And then also I want the enabled. They don't have disabled in here, which is just a little thing that I think the Syncfusion engineers forgot. If you're going to make it enabled for everything. If I'm going to make it disabled for everybody. This is how you know I'm not sponsored by them, because I'm criticizing them live like this. So what do I want to do here is disabled, right? So that's my enabled part, okay? And now I have other things that I need to do. I want to go up in here and say, let's see if we can set up onChange here off the bat. Let's see here if I can do it just right away on value or value changed, I think. Okay, you need the events for that one. Okay, that's what their documentation say anyway, but I thought, let's explore. So this is DateTime picker events. So that's how they structure it. So see, all of our work is sitting in the background, and we're just making sure our tests are passing. That's all. Let's see what happened to this guy. Still trying to find the answers. DateTime picker events. All right. While it's taking a nap, picker events wants a t-value as well. So I'm just going to go up in here and say DateTime offset. And then also the second one here, which is I don't think I'm going to be able to remember that one. Let me take all that stuff away. It might be confusing it. And let me do Control KD just to pull things back a little bit. Let's see. Did I pick up the wrong one? Let's see. SF DateTime picker. That's right. Let me save this guy just to make sure. This is all the the components complexity and Visual Studio. Let me close this completely and just open it back up and see if that helps. And maybe I'll give it a build as well, just to give you that kind of quick feedback, because I want you to see the coloring on this is really important. It's part of the experience, really. So let me rebuild this real quick. Let's see, maybe I forgot something. There we go. So it all builds, it's all happy. Wonderful. Okay. DateTime picker events, and then t-value, and then this is DateTime offset, like this. I'm going to cowboy this one, and then value changed. And this value changed will take in the function that I have, which is onValue changed, or onValue change, I think. Why did I call it onValue changed? Yep, this guy. Now there's a trick about this guy though. In order to make this guy actually work, this onValue change, what you really need to do is basically we need to fix our guy here, so you don't need to do that parsing anymore, because that changed event args, has changed to carry a parameter type now. So in here I'm gonna go and say changed event args. See, changed event args, I think. And if I pick up the autocomplete here, you'll see all these different components. Each one of these components in Syncfusion picks up its own value. In here, I'm going to carry out DateTime offset, the one that goes for the DateTime picker, like this. What does that mean? It means that all of this is going to go away. I'm going to await this guy and say set value, just like this set value up above in here. It's my local method, and I'm just going to pass a value in here. That basically says this guy is going to call this guy, and this guy is going to be able to persist the value in there with whatever is coming from the change event args. Let's go back in here and let's build our solution. It's still not giving me the nice coloring that I wanted to show you, but we can work with that. What am I missing here? Is disabled. Oh, it's actually airing out for something. Let's see what it's airing out for. This guy. Okay, it doesn't like something in here. Interesting. Let's see. SF DateTime picker. So that closes this guy. And this is onValue change DateTime. Is it this guy that it's mad about? Let's see. Is disabled. I think I had @ sign or something like that next to is disabled, and that just freaked it out. So maybe this will work. I think this might do it. Let's build this again. Yeah, the parser for Blazor is still really trying to get in there, but hopefully we'll get there. Okay, so this is the event, DateTime picker events, and I hope that my documentation also is, let's see, DateTime picker event, DateTime picker events. And here's the events. I hope I picked up the right DateTime picker events. Okay. Okay, DateTime picker events. Is it date picker events? Is that what it's looking for? Aha. Okay, fine. All right, so that's that guy. And why is this guy mad here? Because, okay, it's starting to kind of build up and give you all these nice colors. Okay, value change, DateTime offset. This guy should go yellow, and everything should just be fine. It's really, really slow, though. Really struggling, as you can see. All right, let's try to build this again. Still not happy. Let's see. Okay, this is the SF DateTime picker, so that should close it. And changing, it's doing things. Is disabled. That's the value of this. And oh, maybe it doesn't recognize value changed. Let's see. Maybe it has a different name for it. Value change. And this will be on value changed. There you go. Sorry about that. Control KD. I should fix things up, I hope. KD, come on. Okay. Still mad at something, but this is this is a little bit moving forward. And then let's build this again. Yeah, now it's happy. Okay, perfect. Now let's go run our tests. Nothing should change in our test because the stuff that we did with the button should be the same as the one that we're doing for the DateTime picker. But let's just make sure that things are working the way we expect them to. Perfect. If I run my software now, I'll take a look at this fireworks. Now, you remember how our DateTime picker used to look like. It was this really crappy one. Now check out this one. Look at this DateTime picker. Now it has a really nice, of course I'm zooming in like 100%. So it's going to look funny, but we're going to fix that really, really soon. So check this out. You know, I have a DateTime. I can pick up DateTime. If you pick up something off the bat, it's pretty cool, you know, the way it's working. And just to confirm, when you pass these things, you know, it's actually going to go up in there and actually try to find the values for you and all that kind of stuff. So we're getting a little bit closer, right, with our DateTime picker and all that kind of stuff. This is all happening. Let's go back in here and let's upgrade the rest of our components. The toughest one of those is the drop-down base. This one is very interesting, right? It has a completely different set of ways it's working, and I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna kind of steal away some of the ways we did this in the past, just so I can to be considerate of the time in here. So let's just go up in here and say this is using Syncfusion Blazor dropdowns. So we're gonna modernize the dropdown as well. I'm gonna go up in here and say SF DropDownList. SF DropDownList like this. This is my dropdown list. Because this is an enum, it's actually very interesting the way it works. And I'm gonna show you in a second why is that. So we need a T value and a T item. The value represents the actual value from your T enum. Since this is generic, we pass in whatever enumerator to it. It'll be fine with that. But then you also need the T item. And the T item, you just need to kind of the type of the item. So you want to represent it as a string. And that's okay. Here comes the crazy part. This guy needs a data source, right? Data source. And this data source will be whatever that T enum that you're passing in is. So we need to kind of go and say from an enum, get the names of type of T enum, whatever that generic type is, and that's how we're gonna get all these values for this guy. And of course, just like the other ones, you know, this guy has enabled excuse me, enabled like this. So we're gonna go and say, you know, it's the opposite of is disabled. Never change your interface. Just keep the interface as is, and then abstract away that stuff, right? So that's that guy. And since I'm not really a big fan of this like bang, I'm just gonna go ahead in here and say is, if this guy is false, if disabled is false, then this is enabled. This is much better for me from a readability standpoint, because it's very easy for you to kind of miss that bang in there. Very easy, and a lot of engineers just kind of scratch their heads for hours just trying to find out why things are not working. Now let's catch the events. Remember all that stuff that we did in here? Obviously, if you need a for each for in the future, just use Pretty Blazor, which is a library I built just to allow you to write markup, proper markup that actually has the iterations. But let's just go ahead with the drop-down events, right? And again, I want a T value, which is the T enum, and I want a T item, Let's take that to the next line. Look how when you take things to the next line and things are multi-lined, you just take it down like this. So this is the item, and that guy will be a string as well. And then on value change. So this is value change, the exact same thing that we did with the previous one. This will be on value changed like this, and that will be it. There's nothing else to do there. And it also the exact same thing that we changed. Just throw all of that stuff away like this. So this is the toughest one, and we're already past it. And then on that drop-down base, the same thing that we did here. I'm going to go ahead and throw this away like this. And I'm going to go here and make this asynchronous. And this guy here, just like the previous one, the DateTime had already DateTime offset, right? This one's going to have a different type, right? Changed event args. Let me pull the drop-down one in here, which is, I think, the inputs one. And then in here, you need a t enum, and you need a string. See how different this is? Because this is using something else. This is using something completely different. And I bet this guy has its own drop-down. I think it's Blazor drop-downs, actually. So it's not this guy. It's drop-downs. Drop-downs. Yep. There are so many different components out there. So now this guy should be happy. Changed event args. Or rather, change event args. So here's another one for the Syncfusion team. In one of these, there is changed event args, and in the other one, there's change event args. That's an engineer nightmare. So here's another one for you guys to kind of look at. And then the last thing I want to do in here is to basically go and say, I want to go and say await set value, and this set value will take the change event args dot value like this. That's it. They should be happy now. All right, this is happy. And this is happy. This should be very happy right now because that basically matches the requirement on value change. Let's build this whole thing and see. Let's see if we missed anything. Ah, we missed something. Okay. On value change, maybe I misspelled that one. On value changed, this is this guy. There you go. That should do the trick. And let's try to build this again. There's more things that we're missing. Is disabled is false. Do we have extra? Yeah, we have an extra thing in here. Okay, extra parat. No, actually, hold on. You need both of these, but you also need this one. That should make it happy, I think. Yeah, now everything is happy. Okay, let's build this. Where is this guy pointing? So this is value change. This is all good. And SF DateTime picker. Pretty sure this one is good as well. Let's see. Why is it angry? This is even not the drop down. This is a DateTime picker. Why did that one all of a sudden start getting angry? Let's see. Did I change the code in the wrong place? No, I didn't. This is on value change. This is good. And this is the DateTime offset. This one is good. So this one is not complaining. Interesting. Let's clean up everything then and start over. Okay, and the error here is at the DateTime picker base. Interesting. Literally where we were a second ago. Let's see, did anything change here? I don't think I changed anything. Let's see. SF DateTime picker is disabled. All of this is good. I'll write it by hand. Again, it's experimental, Visual Studio experimental stuff, so many things are coming into place here. So let's see, hopefully this will do the trick. Maybe we don't need this guy. I hope that makes it happy. Let's try this again. Still not happy with the date time. Oh, and then there is type must be an unnullable value type. This is the drop-down list. It has a tenum parameter tenum in the generic type. This should be. Let me just make sure that this one is in the right order. We'll fix this real quick. This is enum and string changed event args set value async. This is all good, and then this is all the stuff that's up above that. This is all fine, and this is drop downs. Enum. It's also very likely that they might have changed the APIs for this guy. Tenum. This is all good. Yep, and the error here is the type must be non-nullable value type in order to use it as a parameter tenum. Okay, an unnullable type, and I think that's what we've done here. Tenum is not nullable. Yeah, this guy should be fine. Just out of curiosity, let me disable this for a second, Control KC here, and let me just build the system. I just want to make sure that our DateTime picker is not actually broken. Okay, so the DateTime picker is not broken. It's just being DateTime picker. So now the problem is in this guy here. This guy say that the t value versus the t item. The value is an enum, t enum, which is this guy, and is disabled is this, and then get names, you know, type of t enum. This is all good, no problem there. And then this is the string. This is all good as well. And then I should be able to rebuild this. Okay, so this here is the problem. Tenum get name. Tenum is the generic type or method tenum get name. Is it? Oh, it's get names. My bad. This is where this is. Yeah, get names right there. Okay, now we should be good. Sorry about that. Let's go back here. Let's go ahead and push this out there. All right. Oh, before I run this, I need to run my tests real quick just to make sure we run things end to end. So let's go back here. Give it a second. Okay, perfect. Okay, and let's run our tests real quick. So here's a test. Come on, come on. Is everything good? Everything is good. Perfect. Love it when it goes all green like that. Makes me happy. Now let's go ahead and run this guy. Boom. So now I have a really fancy drop down. Look at this drop down that I have in here. Much, much better than the one that I had before. So you see how the system is basically, I'm upgrading every single component system. The last one is these text boxes. Let's go ahead and run real quick and fix these text boxes. Exactly the same thing. Using Syncfusion Blazor inputs like this, and then I want to SF text box like this, and then I want to go and say I think this one has the binding fine, which is again another thing that, you know, to the Syncfusion team, like if you're gonna do that, I'm gonna even put that guy right in here so I don't have to type all of this again. But then the only thing here is that I'm gonna add something really interesting, but let me just fix those first. Like this on input should stay the same, should be just fine. And then the placeholder should also be just fine. So let me just Control KD here. Placeholder, the only difference is that it's uppercase because it's a property, right? And there's no disabled, it's all enabled. And then this one is also false, like that. That should be everything you need to do, really. I'm going to add one more thing at the very bottom here. I'm going to go and say floatable label type. And I'm going to go and say floatable label type dot auto. And I'll show you what that means in a second. Okay, let's just first make sure that all of this is working. Do I need to change on value change? You bet, probably I do. Let's throw that away like this. Let's throw all of this away. And they might not even ask you to do that because it's super native It might not ask us to do that. Let me just run the test real quick. Yeah, text boxes are the easiest ones to deal with. Yeah, I think it's okay. I think it's okay here. Okay, let's run our entire application here and let's just see. I wouldn't make a change unless I have to. If I don't have to make the change, I won't make the change. Okay, so let me run this, and now things are very, very different. Look at this. So let me close this guy. Look at your labels. Look at the text boxes. They've changed dramatically from the way things were. Look at all this. So now things are very, very different. Now we just need to verify that the options that we're selecting, like if I go here and say ABC56 and then Hassan M Habib like this, and I go and hit that student submit, I want to put a breakpoint in here, and I'm only going to tell you about the cards in a second because we're going to make this really, really cool. Let's put a breakpoint on OSSS portal here, which is the student registration. This guy here. I'm going to put a breakpoint right here just to see that it's passing in the right values. Okay, so I'm going to go back here. Here is the DateTime picker stuff. Let's push that guy. Let's see if the DateTime picker is actually doing the right job. No, it's not. So DateTime picker is not really putting in the right values yet, but everything else is working just fine. So the gender is selected, the first name, identity, last name, all of that stuff is all in place. Let's just fix our DateTime picker. That's interesting. Let's go to the DateTime picker here. And let's see why it's doing that. So this is setting the value. This is all good. We might need to, this is a drop down. This is all good. Label, text box. I'm gonna try to bind the value on the DateTime picker just to see. Bind value. I'm gonna say value in here. Let's see if that's actually the problem that we're missing here. Let's see if that's the answer to our question. Let's run this guy. Okay. Let's pick up something in here. Submit, hit the breakpoint, go back to the breakpoint. Do I have the value in here? I do not, and we need to really make this work. Okay, let's go back. Triple S, DateTime picker. This is disabled. On value changed. Let's go down to this on value changed. Passing in the value in here. I'm gonna put a breakpoint on this guy just to see if it's actually setting up the value right, because according to our unit test this is actually happening. But let's just see here. So this guy is 20. Do I need to select a time by any chance? This is not doing what we expect it to. Let's just make sure we've done our stuff right here. So this is t value. I'm going to take this bind value away for now. This is date time offset. This guy's taking a date time offset properly, and it's setting up the value. The value is coming through. It doesn't seem like it's triggering the right stuff, and we need to kind of make it do that. So this date time picker, we have the reference, we have the bind value stuff that we're passing in. This is the birth date. And this birth date is supposedly a, let's see here. So this is whatever comes back out of that value. So that's fine. We just need to figure out for the date time picker. Yeah, all of this should be triggering when this value changes. On value change, this is the event, this is the t value. Let's just rebuild this solution and see. Sometimes it's just because you're using a lot of like demo stuff, it might not just work off the bat, but let's see. Okay, and here is this guy. Submit student. Here's a breakpoint. Huh. Let's look at their documentation real quick. Why not? Let's go into the DateTime picker. And this guy is saying DateTime, t-value, value change. This is all good. And so technically this should trigger immediately as soon as we change the value on a on our DateTime picker. This is really what should happen. It should go and say, okay, you're changing the value, trigger that value immediately. So let's just see here real quick. We're going to do this together. We're doing the whole session together today. Submit student. Okay, so the change on this didn't go through though. And if we put a breakpoint on something like a drop down, let's see if when I change the value, does it actually call this, just to make sure that this is actually what we're chasing against. Let's go here. If I go and select value here, yeah, see that guy actually is working because as soon as the value changed, it was able to easily pick it up and actually send that signal down. So that's what's missing in here. What's missing is that it didn't know how to translate that guy. It didn't know how to translate it, and that's why things didn't go through. So this event is not triggering. So what's super different about this event? Is there a date time? Let's see, date time picker. Yeah, I used date picker event instead of date time picker event, and that's why it was failing. Okay, great. We found it. No problem. That was short and easy and simple. Sorry about that. Let's go up in here. I bet you that time this one's going to work for sure. So let's close this. Pick up a date time. Click submit. Do I have the value in there? You sure I do. This is 8/19/2021, all good and dandy. Okay, all of these components are here together. Let's just go back to the overview here. And then I'm going to show you how to set up a license and all that kind of stuff. So, okay, so look at this. We have all these components in here. They're very pretty, and they go up in there, and they do all these kind of crazy stuff. This is all good, but that's not good enough. Why is that not good enough? Is because I need this to be containerized in something that looks a lot better than all of this. So there's this concept of cards. I need to have a card, and this card is going to have some stuff inside of it, right? I can pass a render fragment in it, you know, and basically it will take care of, you know, handling how things look like, right? If you go, actually, I'm not going to show you what it looks like on Syncfusion. Let me just add the card here first, and then I'm going to show you how all of these things look like. So okay, so I upgraded everything. I run everything. It's all good. It's amazing. You know, to this point, everything is running perfectly fine, and I have upgraded my framework, okay? I promise you, usually it doesn't take an hour and 10 minutes to do that, but because I'm talking and explaining things to you, it'll take some time. And we're also debugging on the way, so it's all adding up. Okay, let's go up in here and create a new thing. And this new thing is going to be called card base like this. And this card base, and this card base is going to be containing what I call SF card, which is going to containerize any components that are in there. So using Syncfusion.Blazor.cards, I think. Let's see if it auto completes that for us. Come on. Cards. Okay, I have the cards. And now I want an SF card. So SF card like this. SF card comes with a lot of stuff. There's a lot of capabilities in this thing. There's also, here's the option, SF card. No, I think it's card something. Card content. There you go. You can do footer. You can do all kinds of different things. And inside this guy, I want to pass in a render fragment as a parameter, right? So how do you do that? I want to build something and I want to, like, it's abstract, but at the same time, I want to containerize it so it doesn't take over, you know, another component, right? This is what I'm really trying to do. I don't want it to take over another particular component in my system, right? So how do you go about doing all of that crazy stuff? So this SF card that you have in there, you can pass in there something called content. And this content will be an input parameter that I'm going to pass in there. So I'm going to go up in here and say card base. .razor.cs. Okay, that's my guy right here. And this new Visual Studio thing where it goes and takes away the namespace for you, I don't like that personally. I love my scopes. Bring the scopes back. I don't like I don't like the unscoped stuff. So this is partial. And then this guy is also implementing component base, right? So this is our base component, I think. Yeah, component base. Okay, perfect. So I have this guy, and then I want to pass in to this guy something called a render fragment. It's just a parameter. This card doesn't have any functions on it. It's just a parameter. And this guy, I'm going to put it right in here. So this is prop render fragment, and this is content. Okay, so that's your content in there, and that's my card base. Now I want to containerize everything inside that card. Right? I want to put everything inside that card. So I'm going to go back to my student registration component here. And instead of this container component with state, I'm going to go on top of that and say card base. Right? And inside that card base, there will be the content that we just talked about. So this card base right here, close the card. And then on top of all of this, I want to go and say content, I think. And I don't think you have to do that. Content automatically off the bat means, you know, you're passing in the content, or child content rather. That's what that means. But let's just go ahead in here and throw that in there. So that now your render fragment, which is this entire container component, is living inside the content of this card. Now let's see what things look like. So I'm going to go real quick with this one just to show you what that looks like. Look at this. Now our component now has a card. Do you see this card? It's amazing, right? Because now this card, I can control this card and put things inside of it, and I can control the size and all that. Now, let's do more. Inside this card, there's something called a footer, right? I'm going to go real quick in here. I'm going to go add a new, this is where we go a little bit real quick, just so you can see how easy the Syncfusion stuff makes it look like, but also how easy it's going to be. So in here, I'm going to pass in a parameter. I'm going to say public render fragment, and this is the footer. So that's whatever goes in that footer area. That's your render fragment. And in here, basically, in the card content, you'll see card, I think it's going to give me card footer or something. Yep, card footer, like this. And inside that guy, there's card footer content. There you go. And I'm going to go ahead in here and say footer, the parameter that I passed in. Where do you want to put that footer? What do you want to put in it? I'm going to go back to my student registration here. And in this content, there's a new thing that I just created that's called footer, right? This is the footer that I just created right here. Footer. Inside that footer, what am I going to put? I'm going to put the button. The button that moves everything. So this button base guy, I'm going to put that guy right here. And I don't think I need that BR stuff anymore because it's already, Syncfusion is already doing that magic for you. Okay, so I moved the button completely out of this. So if I go and run things again, here we go. See how things are starting to look a bit different. So your button here is going in a different direction. You know, things are starting to kind of light up a little bit, right? Now, I also want to pass in some sort of a label to my card, like a header with a label to my card. I'm going to go back here in the card. I'm going to go and say, so this label, this card could have a title. I think, hold on, card header, right? And the card header, does it have parameters on it? Yeah, it has title and subtitle, right? So I also want to pass in, but we're going to have to test drive this, because I'm going to show you this real quick because of the time of the video. So there's a title and subtitle as well. Look at this. And we want to pass in some values in there, right? So I'm going to go ahead and create something here called title and something here called subtitle, like this. And I'm going to create those as parameters that I can pass in. Okay, here we go. Parameter, prop, string, title, here we go, and there's parameter, prop, string, subtitle. Okay, so these are my titles. I'm going to go back to my student registration, and now my card base has other things. So like title. Oh, come on. Title. There you go. This is student registration. And in the subtitle, here we go. Please please fill in the below fields or something like that. Okay. So now my card has a title and a subtitle. I can go ahead and run my application again. Like, see how fast this is and how things are changing super fast. I want to do the hot reload, but I don't trust this thing yet, so we'll see. Here we go. I'm too fast for this thing. Let's close it and start it again. Okay, fine, great. Let's close it and start again. There you go. So now your card, look at this, student registration, and then you have please fill in below fields. Look how that looks. And then we're gonna fix the width of the card in a second, but then you have the button and I have that. There's also something called footer separator. That's pretty cool. You can go up in here into the card itself, card base, and you can probably, I think it's on the card footer. Let's see. Card footer. It could be probably in here. Let's see. Card footer content. You can put a text in there. That's pretty cool. And then you can also, let's go back to their documentation because they have all that stuff in there. So let's go into card in here. See, they have all these documentations, and then header and content. There you go. They do have something though. Action buttons. Nice. Card footer content. This is all really cool. And then horizontal card style and appearance. Let's see. Divider used to separate the elements inside the card. Yeah, you could do something like that, I guess. Anyway, there's a way to do this. Anyway, the point is, you know, you can add images to it. You can do all that kind of stuff. So this is the card stuff. The title. Yeah, it's called enable separator. There it is. I found it. Enable. That's where? That's on the card content itself. Okay, perfect. Let's go back to this base guy. Enable separator equal true. Nice. Let's run this guy and see what that looks like now. Not a whole lot, really. Not a whole lot. Okay, while we're doing this, we also want to kind of shrink the card a little bit, right? The card is stretched all over the place. We want to kind of control the card. Let's experiment with this first, just so people could see. If you go on the e-card like this and you say, I think there is a size for it that we can control in here. Let's see, width, style, width is 50% of your page. Let's see if that works for us. This is the part where we make it work again because we need to know what our card really end result want to look like. There you go. Look how things are getting really, really nice and sweet. Your card has all of these different labels going on in there. You got all that good stuff going on for you, you know. And then, you know, we might need to kind of add in for both the drop down and the time. We want to basically put in some, you know, padding top kind of thing. So let's just go ahead and do that. The beautiful thing about this is that you can now go ahead and add CSS under. Look at this new item under. So you see how we have C#. Let me hide the camera for a second. you have C#, you can also add CSS files in there. So we can go here and say, this is my dropdown base.razor.css, and it will list right under. Do you see how it's listing right under this guy? And now I can just go and say, well, dropdown space maybe, and then padding. So how this goes: top right, left, top right, bottom left, top right, bottom left, right? So I want to just put a 10px, and I don't care about the rest. 0, 0, 0 like this. And then I need to take that drop down space, which is specific to that component, and just add it up in here as well. So this is style, oops, style, and this will be drop down space, something like that. This guy is already added in, as a class into this guy. So you don't have to do anything. You already added that guy in there. We don't need the dot as well. All right, let's see if that works. Should kind of do a little bit of padding to the top to push away whatever at the top of the drop down. Is that working for us? Let's see. Let's see. Input group. It's this guy specifically that we're going after. Input group. Yeah, the UI piece is going to take a little. Oh, actually, sorry, I selected the wrong one. It's this one here. Yep. So if I do padding 10px. Oh, we don't want that. Hold on. We want the element that's above that. That guy. Okay, what does that guy look like? Looks like this. Span EADL wrapper. Okay, and then I'm gonna go and say padding 10px. Nope, still increasing the wrong element. Let's get a little bit closer to this guy and fix it. Padding 10px 0, 0, 0. Huh. All right, let's see what we're detecting here. Like if I go to the HTML, the actual elements on this guy. So that's the guy that we're in. And then there is this input group. So this is one, and then this is the second one. This guy right here. And this guy is the one I want, the one that has this wrapper and all that kind of good stuff in there. So can I actually select that guy? So if I expand this, this is the drop down list. This is the actual, yeah, all of these little parameters in there. Yep, let me get that guy again. This guy here. All right. And if I expand this a little bit, okay, where is my styles? There it is. Okay, so on this guy, I'm gonna create a new thing in here, and I'm gonna say padding 10px. Really? Oh, margin is what I need. Okay, fine. Sorry. You always forget that stuff. Yeah, margin. Okay. So margin kind of gives me that kind of space that I want to have between these elements. Now, the next question here is to be able to kind of actually enforce that through the style itself, right? So I want to go back to my code here, and I want to have that guy in there, right? Usually the system has its own kind of styles that are going on there. Let's just see if that's the case. So this is margin like this, and I want to enforce this. So I want this guy to be the guy that's actually taking care of my SF drop-down list. Let's rebuild all of this and let's see what the case is here. Is this working? Not really. We could also steal the original. So if I go and get that style in here, I could copy that guy, and I could go and capture that guy specifically, the guy that I'm trying to actually enforce the style for. So I'm gonna go up in here and go and say, give me this selector specifically on this guy. Let's see if that works for us. No, still needs to be enforced on a higher level, I think. Anyway, so I see the separator in here though, which is good. This separator here is good. I wonder if I can also enable that separator on the card on the bottom side, which is the footer for the card. Let's see if I can do that. That would be really cool. This content in here, enable. Yeah, you can't get it in here, unfortunately. That's a bummer. Enable separator. Nope. I know there's a card footer separator, but yeah, it's such a bummer. Anyway, I wonder if the content itself would give me that kind of interesting. Anyway, so there's that card, and then we also what else do I want to add on top of this? We need to fix the styles, that's for sure, but also on the registration form itself, I want to centralize this whole guy, right? I want to take all this div align center, I want to take that out of here and put it up here, and I want to centralize all of this all the way beyond the card base itself. I don't know if that will help, but let's just hope it does. Let's see if I can centralize the entire card in a way that would put it exactly at the center of the page, because that's the last thing I want to do here. I want to basically centralize the card, and that would be it. Okay, this is a little over. Let's see. Do I have anything with styles in here? I probably shouldn't. Let me revert that. And this should do the trick, but let me double check here as well. I think you need kind of a container, or the container will have certain styles in it, and you know, for to kind of centralize things or justify things. Let's see, I might be able to do that one here. Okay, so this is okay. Card, we did all the card stuff. We could probably contain some of that stuff. Let's try this on the quick trial. This is the part of the UI where you have to kind of make sure things are actually usable. So there's this guy here. Let's see if we can centralize this guy from here. So this is the part about this card. By the way, have you noticed, like, you know, it's super kind of, it will like kind of adjust itself to fit your mobile experience as well. See how automatically it's taking care of all the, you know, expansion, like if the registration, if the page is too small, it'll take care of that for you. I'll try just for the time of this video, I'll try to kind of, you know, cover that up, because there's a couple of tests that we also have to write in here to make this thing work. But let me experiment with that and try to cover up in a different kind of session. But for now, this is how our registration form look right now. Look at this. I'm gonna take a screenshot of this and compare it to what we actually had originally. And that's how you kind of, you're leveraging this power of having UI components. I'm gonna put that guy in here. Hold on a second, like this. Okay, we need more space. Let's do that. Here you go. Look at the difference between these two forms. So it's like day and night, right? It's like day and night. You have this form in here. Look how it looks like, versus this form in here, which is really completely something different. This is how I'll make this the first video of making the UI look kind of representable. But before we do all of that, let's just make sure it actually works. So I'm gonna do say XYZ some numbers. There's a student identity, and then there's Hassan, M, Habib, and then let's select a. Yep, this is the breakpoints we put just to pick up the changes, and then let's change the date as well. So we can go, look how beautiful this is. You can go to years, in the past and the future, and then September 27th, and then click submit. There you go. And do I have a breakpoint somewhere? Oh, I shut down my API. That's why. Okay, sorry about that. So contact support, there's a dependency that your system is using. Here we go. Submit student. There you go. So submitted, successful. All of that is good. The last thing for you though, how do we get rid of this annoying sign, the license is required and all that kind of stuff? How do you get rid of that? Let me just give you that one before I wrap up. So of course you go and register and all that. This is all good and dandy, no problem there, right? But how do you actually go and say I want to add in a license, right? In my software. How do I add this piece in there? So you see this second line in here where you go and you need to add licenses. You need to go under this configuration, and you're basically going to go and say Syncfusion license provider. So Syncfusion license provider, there you go, and then register license. And as soon as you register license, you need to pass in the license key in here, right? For the purpose of this, I'm gonna put the license key away in a different, I'm gonna okay, so this is, okay, so here's your registration. You're going into Syncfusion. If I go into the, there you go, you go and get the community license, and then you click get license key, and the license key basically exactly what you need to kind of get off the ground. So I'm going to put the license key in here while we're just away from this video here. You get to select, actually let me show you this. You get to select the platform, so what platform you want to do since you already have a community license. So you select that, and then you select what version, right? I think we used version 56, right? And then you click license key and it spits it out in here. So I'm going to just hide that away for security purposes, and I'm going to add the license in the code in there. And then I'm going to go back to the code here. I'm not going to show you startup the CS now because this is a different license. And then let's run this and see what that looks like in terms of changes. There you go. See, you don't get that error anymore because you're running on a community license. Look how different and how beautiful your application is compared to what it was before. Much, much better. You get to control things. You get to do whatever you want. Date time, pick up the day, pick up the time, and go ahead and select and all that kind of stuff. Before I forget though, I don't like that these guys are centered like this, and I know why they're centered like this. Let me go back to the code here real quick. Let's see here. I could go into the student registration, and I think there's there's this centralization here that we don't need. Okay, there you go. So these guys should all kind of move to the left side. There we go. So here's that guy, and then these are on the left side. Look how beautiful and seamless this is. And then the last thing, I maybe want to push that button on the right side in here. So I'm just gonna go and do that. Here we go. I'm gonna go here and say, okay, for this button base div align right, and I think I misspelled align. Oh, I didn't. Okay, hold on. Div. I think that would do the trick. Okay, align right. Let's see if that actually pushes the button to the right side of the form. There we go. Here's the button. Look how beautiful this is. And then you don't need submit student, you just need to say submit. So let's fix the unit tests. Let's just make sure first our tests are running happy and happy. Okay, everything here is happy. I'm just going to go and change the component itself. I'm going to have the title on the button. Instead of submit student, it'll just be called submit. Just submit like this. So this guy, ideally, this guy is going to fail. Let's run this guy. Here's a failure. And then I'm going to go and make this guy fast by going into the student registration, and I'm going to call this submit. Just submit. Oh. Okay, now let me go and run everything again. Everything should pass. And everything is passing. Now if I run my application, here we go. You have submit, you have a form, you have everything in there. Beautiful redesign and reimagination. See why these UI components are very important, you know, because it makes your life so much easier. You get a little bit of time fighting with it, but once you get used to it, it should be just fine. There's so much more we can do here, right? There's a lot of things that you can do here, but this is basically a quick walkthrough. You can add icons next to these cards. You know, you can pick up this card as a component and put it wherever you want. This is an entire walkthrough that helps you see how things work. And next video, we're gonna make this card even prettier. You know, we're gonna take this card and we're gonna add a spinner. So your button has a spinner on it. Let me show you here, Syncfusion Blazor components. You could have a button with a spinner, which is really cool, but that basically means like while you're submitting, it's locking out everything, but also at the same time, it's helping you kind of give your end user an indication that there is a spinner going on. So there's a button in there. Where's buttons? Right there. I think it's called progress button or something like that. Let's see if I can find that for you. Buttons, progress button. Is that what it is? So if you click on it, do you see this little progress? Do you see how the button works? Do you see this? We're gonna leverage this. Like you could see steps in here like this, or you could do progress status. This is even mind-blowing. Or uploading, or reverse, or vertical. I think these ones also, you know, you get to have a little spinner next to it. See, all of these have these kind of capabilities. Download, like there you go. This one, do you see that little download one? You can do this. So many different things, you know, that spinner right there. So do you see that spinner right there? Instead of us having to say submitting ... we will be basically changing the status on that button, where when you click on that button, it shows you that spinning status right there while it locks everything down. Absolutely in the next video. So I hope this was useful for you. It's a very long kind of trial and error kind of video. You get to see the difference between the different components before and after. It's really important that you make your stuff beautiful. It's always a work in progress, like always working with this UI components is a work in progress. You're gonna have to go back and forth and try things and then make sure you write a test for it and all that. Like we wrote SF card there, but we need to write some tests for it to make sure that we're passing the right title and the right information to that card. I hope that was useful for you. It's a little bit of a longer video, almost 2 hours. Please feel free, you know, to comment, put a question in there. You know, if you have any comment or concerns, feel free to drop it in the comment section. And as usual, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in another video. Thank you so much for watching.